Hello, and welcome to Speak Honest. I am your host and certified relationship coach, Jennifer Noble. It has been my passion for over a decade to help women like you heal what's been holding you back from having the relationships you deserve. Are you struggling with a relationship where you can't seem to voice your emotions, needs, and boundaries without having it blow up in your face? Then you have found the right podcast, my friend. Get ready for practical tips, empowering truths, and honest conversations. Now, let's dive in. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Speak Honest. On today's episode, I want to get into the discussion of parents and how we can have these kind of two opposing sides to how we feel about our parents. Because for most of us who know about attachment styles, we know that our parents play an important role in that. But how do we reconcile that and also love them at the same time? Well, I'm going to get into that later, but first, I want to talk to you about our Facebook group. I really want you to come in and join our Facebook group. It's for women like you that are struggling in your relationships. If you are finding it hard to communicate with your partner, if every time you try to share your feelings or your thoughts or you set a boundary and it blows up in your face, that is what this group is for. Right now, it's still a little bit on the small side, if I'm being really honest. So it's a great opportunity to join and get your question asked one-on-one with me in the group. I love being in that group and helping out as many women as possible. We have weekly questions. I even offer up sometimes free coaching calls in there, and we have coffee chats, and we just have a lot of fun in there. It's a really great community. I hope you join. In addition to the Facebook group, I also would love it if you could subscribe and rate and review this podcast. This podcast is really starting to become something, and it makes me really excited to think about it because this has been a dream of mine for so many years now. But if you could take the time to review the podcast, especially if you use Apple Podcasts, that's a great spot for me to get seen. But the more reviews that get put up there, the more my podcast goes up. And then the more we get to share this wonderful and healing news with everyone that we possibly can. And really, that's just my goal here. I just would love to keep spreading as much information as I can out there. I have done so much research, both in my personal life and with my clients and in my studies, and I just get really excited to share all of that out there. So those are the two things I would love for you to do this week for me. Join the Facebook group and review the podcast. Thank you so much. Now let's start talking about attachment styles and our parents. Okay, so we know that attachment styles are developed from the types of relationships we had with our primary caregivers. This is predominantly parents, of course, but I want to be clear here that it could also be grandparents, aunts or uncles, or whoever it is that really raised you, who was your primary caregiver. And so the hard part here is, here are these amazingly beautiful people who took the time out of their lives to raise us, to feed us, to put a shelter over our head, to give us clothes. And even those people who loved us so much, they screwed up a lot. And the reason I'm bringing this up today is because it's actually my dad's birthday today. And so I started thinking about this a lot. My dad passed away 10 years ago, and he still is on my mind a lot. And I definitely had my issues with him growing up. We would butt heads all the time. We were just constantly fighting. He was always up in my business. He was actually the coach. I played a lot of sports and he was coach a lot, but he always held me to a higher standard. And he would say really mean things to me. And at the time as a teenager, I hated this. I hated my dad. And you know what? To some extent, I know that some of the issues that I have in my life today are because of the things he said to me. And that's just the honest truth. And also, God, did that man love me. I mean, he took time out of his busy schedule to come and coach our sports, to try to make me the best possible person that I could. He even sometimes in the things he would say, like, so I'm a kind of a heavier girl. I've always been quite big growing up. And he would say things like, Jenny, you are just the chubbiest, most athletic girl I've ever met. And so obviously as a 14-year-old, I don't want to be called chubby. And so, yeah, he didn't have the best ideas, but his intentions were pure. And yeah, he messed up a lot, but that's because he had his own trauma. His dad was an alcoholic. He went to the Vietnam War. He was dealing with all of this shit going on in his life in the 60s and 70s. And you know what? He did the best possible job he could with the tools he had. And I respect the hell out of him for that. And I miss him every day. I really do. I wish I could still talk to him. He made me laugh so much. And still, yeah, he was pretty problematic. We had very different views on things that happen in the world. In fact, sometimes I'm maybe kind of glad he's not around right now because I'm afraid if we would fight even more in terms of what our beliefs are. But at the same time, maybe we could have communicated in a beautiful way where we could have differing beliefs and that would be okay. And I bring this up to say it's okay to have two different feelings around our parents or our primary caregivers. It's okay to understand that the issues that we're having in our lives today come from them. Like my self-conscious nature, my issues with my body and being called chubby and all of this stuff. And my dad would make this joke. Oh God, it's terrible. But he would be like, oh, when God was giving out brains, you thought he said trains. So you hopped on the first one. And my eyes are rolling right now as you see me. Basically, he was saying I was dumb. And I got that a lot as a kid, especially as a young teenager. I was a young blonde white girl who had a squeaky voice and was kind of ditzy. And I didn't know at the time all of the learning disabilities that I had, which I do now. But at the time, I just thought I was a dum-dum, and it didn't help that my dad would constantly reinforce that. He would just say, oh, I'm just pretty, and that's okay, and I could be good for something. And so I grew up with this narrative in my mind. Also, he had a bit of a temper. So yeah, he would yell at me sometimes or slam a door. There were times when he would smack my brother so hard to where he bled out of his eardrum. The thing is these are just the honest truths of my family. We can have both the times when my dad would smack me with a paddle and the times when he would pick me up and hold me and love me and take me to the father-daughter dance and show me off as if I was the most prized possession of his entire life. And that's the important part to realize here. There's no blame. When we start talking about attachment styles and healing our inner child and doing all of this kind of stuff, we're not blaming our parents. We're just stating the reality, the truth of it. And now this can be really hard because, yeah, it can hurt our parents or our primary caregivers, our sisters or our brothers or our cousins or anyone else who hurt us. But that's the thing we have to start really realizing. And if you're out there and you're a parent, especially if you're a parent to adult children or anything like that, one of the best things that you can really give your children is the accountability of what you did to them that hurt them. And you might not even know. Like, I'm sure some of the stuff that my dad did, truly, he thought that he was loving me more than anything in the world. And he was just doing what was best by me, right? Like, pick yourselves up by your bootstraps, get on with it. No pain, no gain, right? That's his old school mentality. So in his mind, he thinks he's building me up to be this resilient woman. But no, it hurt me. And so if I could go back in time, I was not healed 10 years ago to have these conversations with him. But if he was here today, I would get to talk to him and I would be able to say, you know what, Dad, some of that stuff really hurt me. And his reaction is his, and he can be like, oh, you're so sensitive, Jenny, blah, blah, blah. And I'd still say, well, you know what, Dad, like, I don't really like that either. I'm not trying to blame you, but these things that happened, they really affected me. And I just want to move forward and have a beautiful relationship with you now. And even though my dad's not here, that's kind of where I've gotten to with him. I definitely have that with my mom now. Also had issues with her growing up, but now she's probably one of my best friends, and I never expected to say that. And that's how we can hold space for both loving our parents and understanding them, and also understanding that the shit they did to us in childhood really affected us. And that we are allowed to feel that. That is okay. But now let's say you had terrible parents and you want nothing to do with them anymore. I just want to say you're perfectly okay with that. I'm not here to say you have to put up with the abuse that happened to you in childhood or the abuse that's still happening to you today. I'm not saying that at all. This is for the people who are confused because they love their parents so much, and also they see why they're really fucked up because of their parents. But if you right now are sitting there and you're listening to this and it's building any sort of an emotion for you, especially with Father's Day coming up soon and all of this kind of stuff happening, if this is eliciting a response for you, listen to that response. I want you to listen to your body, because before I got to a place where I could have a good relationship with my mom, I needed space from her. I basically went no contact because I needed to figure myself out. So if this is you and you're sitting there and you're like, I would never forgive my dad for what he did to me, I would never talk to him. Good. Because we all have to go through our own journey in figuring this out. If you need to take a break from anyone in your family, you are allowed to. Do not let them guilt you. Do not let them shame you. Do not let them tell you you're ruining the family. Again, maybe I'm projecting here because I've definitely had some of this in my life. But you are allowed to feel whatever you feel, and you are allowed to have your reality. They cannot tell you how you feel. Just remember, again, we've talked about this, but feelings are feelings, perceptions are perceptions. So remember, you can't say, I feel unloved by my family. You might think you are, but you don't know that. The weird part is with families is 9 times out of 10, they actually love the hell out of you. They just don't know how to show it. And they love you so much that really they just keep messing it up. So the love is usually not in question. If it is, then definitely take your distance. The love is not in question. They definitely love you. They just don't really know how to love themselves. And so sometimes they're not going to act in the ways that maybe we think is the best way to act. So we just have to get stronger with our boundaries, stronger with our communication, and all of that stuff out there. With all of that said, I think now is a really great time for me to share that I will be launching a 12-week course soon, which is all about how to communicate better in relationships. I'm hoping to get this launched in the summer so we can have a really beautiful summer 12-week program where I'm taking up to 10 women through this program together. So we will build this together. We will communicate together. We will build a connection together. And all of this is going to happen in this 12-week course. And one of the big things in the 12-week course called the Relationship Reboot program is we will actually be working on how to set boundaries, how to communicate our boundaries, but also how to identify them. And this is something I'm really excited to share with all of you so you can really get going with that. But I'll still try to drop some podcasts about boundaries and all of this stuff whenever I can. My goal here is to always share as much information as possible. The things like the courses and the coaching, that stuff like that just puts food on the table for me and my growing teenage son who keeps eating us out of the house and home. But when I can, I still like to give this information freely whenever I can. The course is just going to be a really beautiful place where it's all put together and it's easy to understand. I hold your hand through it and you get one-on-one coaching if you choose for the VIP section. I'll talk more about that in future podcasts. But the course here is just a really beautiful opportunity, especially if you think that this is something that you can afford right now. And this is going to be a wonderful opportunity for you to give back to the community, to speak honest, and we can even use a lot of these funds to help support other women who don't have those funds yet, because I like to give out scholarship programs a lot. My goal here with Speak Honest is to help as many women as possible and to reach the fulfilling relationships that I know they deserve. And I know you all want it so bad, and that's what we're here for. So with all of that said, remember, join the Facebook group and review the podcast. Again, it would mean so much to me if you review this podcast. It's just like this weird algorithm thing where it helps like bump it up and it would just, I am such a words of affirmation girly. And so I just love it whenever anyone is like, oh, this is such a good podcast. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's working. And I just like get tears in my eyes. And I hope that never goes away. But hopefully I'm doing this podcast for so long that as reviews come in, I'm like, oh, that's lovely. But right now they come in and I swear they make my day. So you have the potential to make my day. Thank you very much. And get ready for the Relationship Reboot that will hopefully be launching in a month or so. I just have to get through graduation first and get through all of this stuff going on. And then I am so excited to launch that. All right, everyone. That's what I have for you today. Remember, it's okay to hold space for both loving and being frustrated at your parents or your primary caregivers. And it's just about finding the compassion for holding both of those at the same time. I hope you have a beautiful day, and I'll talk to you next time. As we wrap up today's conversation, always remember that healing is a journey, not a destination, and it is an honor to be a part of your healing journey. If you want to dig deeper into the topics we covered today, be sure to head over to our show notes where you can find all of the valuable information mentioned in today's episode right there. And please remember to rate, review, and subscribe if you enjoyed today's podcast. Your feedback means the world to us and helps others discover our podcast. Until next time, remember to speak up and speak honest.